That copy just completed, so I just did an ls -altr, and you can see that we have a .pivx folder. That's where masternode 1 is being run from. We have a .pivx2, a .pivx3, and a .pivx4. So the next thing we're going to do is just go in. I already went into PIVX2 and removed wallet.dat. We're going to want to do that from PIVX3 and PIVX4. So if I just go cd PIVX3, you can see it there, rm wallet.dat, cd PIVX4, and rm wallet.dat. Okay, so now that's done. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is I want to generate the masternode private keys in the SPMT all at one time. So that's why I'm trying to get everything else set. So there is one other step that we need to do for 3 and 4 so that we can put the IP addresses in properly for masternodes 3 and 4. So if you recall, I'm just going to go back into masternode, the .pivx2 directory. And if we look at the pivx.config file here, so this was our first IPv6 file, and that's the one that's given to you by default from Contabo. You get one IPv4 and one IPv6, but you really have an unlimited number of IPv6s, 6 IP addresses that you can use, but there's some work to do to get to the additional ones. So if you go now, I'm looking at installing and configuring the 3rd and 4th masternodes, and it kind of describes this process here. And what you're going to need to do is you're actually going to need to edit a file that's that actually takes care of your IPv6 configuration. And this is you're going to need to edit this in order to add 2 new IPv6 addresses. And it's pretty easy to do. So what you're going to do first is VI, so you're going to edit. Now you can use a different editor, but it's recommending VI here. So I'm going to get out of here. That was just to show you guys. And now I'm going to say, okay, VI etc netplan 01-netconfig.yaml. Okay, so the line you're looking for is going to have this form, and you can see it right here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy that line and paste it twice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the last number to count up. So we're going to make this 2 and 3. And what this is doing is making room for 2 additional IPv6 addresses that we can then reference. And those will be referenced with the additional masternodes. So next step, now that we've made that small change to this file, the YAML file, we're going to run this command, netplan try. Okay, and it didn't come up with any errors, and it just says enter before the timeout to accept the configuration. Press enter, configuration accepted. So that is now the new configuration. So now we've got 2 additional IPv6 addresses that we can use for the configuration files for masternode 3 and 4. So now let's, why don't we go ahead and put those in. So we go to, I'm going to go to the PIVX2 config file, and this is the one that's kind of already been updated to use an IPv6 address. So it's easier to just take this one and copy it. It still needs the masternode private key, but that's okay. We'll do that as a last step. So I'm going to take this file and simply copy this to PIVX 3 and PIVX 4. And that's going to overwrite the file that was in there, which was actually the original PIVX 1, Masternode 1 configuration file. And we can just confirm this. So if we just check, and we see that that's got the IPv6 info. So again, you can keep the username and password the same. So let's just, probably should have gone into PIVX 3 first. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to edit the PIVX config file here. And all I'm going to do is take that IPv6 IP address and change it to the second one that we made, which had the 2 here. And I'll do that in 3 places. So there, at the bind, at the external IP, and at the masternode address. Okay? And that's done, again, except for the masternode private key, but we're done other than that. And let's do the same thing to PIVX 4. So this one now will be, we just did 2, this will be 3. Okay, so everything's done for masternodes 2 through 4, except for the putting in the private key. So let's go ahead and generate those using the Secure Masternode tool. So what we'll do here is we're going to create a new masternode. And let's start with 2. So we haven't done 2 yet. We've only done the first one, so we're going to start with 2. So I'm going to, at the same time, I will bring up that config file. All right, so let's select new masternode. And we know that we can simply go in here, let's give it a name. So this we'll call 10, because the last one was 9. So we'll call this, and we'll call it 0, 0, 1, 0. And let's just go ahead and generate the masternode key. Okay, it's generated this one, and we can copy this directly over into our config file. Okay, so that should complete the config file for PIVX 2. But there's other things that we have to add in here, and you might remember this from what we had from setting up the first one. So first we need the IP address. And the IP address should have that IPv6 form, excluding the braces. The steps for filling in the masternode collateral are identical to what we did for masternode 1, so I'm not going to go into them in any great detail right here. If you need a refresher, you can go back to the earlier videos. Once you have the PIVX address, you're going to hit the greater than button, and that will obtain the public key address. You have to make sure that your Ledger Live is connected for all of these steps. After that, you're going to hit the lookup button to get the transaction ID. Once you have the transaction ID and the public key, which are obtained from the PIVX address, which you get from the Ledger transaction as we did earlier, you can hit save, and you've got all the information that you need for the second masternode. Okay, so we've got our second masternode. Now, We haven't launched this one yet because we haven't actually started the master node, but we have all the data in here in order to do that. Why don't we go ahead and set up the other two, and then we'll try launching them all together. Okay, so this is done. This was in the PIVX 2 folder. So let's go to the .pivx3 for masternode 3. We'll get that pivx.config file. And let's go through the same process where we say new masternode. And we'll call this one PIVX 11. The IP address, again, we won't put the braces. That's what we want to do here. Will be this. We'll generate the masternode key right now. Oh, there's a new masternode private key. Copy it. That's the one piece of information that's missing from here. Let's just put it in, paste it. Okay. We've now completed the PIVX config file for the third masternode. And again, the process for configuring the delegation parameters using the SPMT tool is identical to the process that we went through for the previous masternodes. So I'm not going to go through those steps, just another quick review. You're going to need to connect your hardware wallet, have the PIVX application launched. You're going to want to obtain the PIVX address, which we went through before. You can do that through the Ledger Live software, and then you'll obtain the public key by hitting the greater than sign. Then you can look up the transmit ID by hitting the lookup button, and that should be all you need to do. And the whole process for getting this, getting the configuration file parameters that were needed, the masternode private key, and going through and setting up the SPMT are identical for masternode 4. So I'm going to skip ahead and go to the next step now. So the software is configured. Now we can go back to the Contabo server side. Okay, now there is actually one more step, one more thing that we need to change in the configuration files for the second, third, and fourth masternodes that I had failed to mention, and that is the RPC port. So the RPC port is going to need to be updated. You can see here for masternode 2 in this example, it's set not to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now because I didn't do that in the earlier step. So if I go to PIVX 2 and look at the PIVX config, okay, we're going to change this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So it has a unique RPC port. And then we can do that for the others. So I'm just going to go to PIVX 3. And this one would be, we can make this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. This is, and then for PIVX 4, we'll choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay. So now we should be ready to start the masternodes 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll get the command here for 2, which is this one right here. And again, this is just cding to the bin directory, and then it's running it and pointing to the appropriate data directory. In fact, that's the only difference right there. So we can do that. Okay, so it started 2. So far, so good. We can do a tail minus F on see how it's going. It looks like it's chugging along here. Again, this should be significantly faster now to get up and running because we've copied over the blockchain that we downloaded for the first one. So let's go ahead and start 3. And 4. And then let's give this a little bit of time to get up and running. It's going to take a little bit of time. And then after that's up and running, we should be able to launch the masternodes through the secure PIVX masternode tool. We'll do that as a last step. So I gave it a little time since the 3 masternodes were launched. Actually, all 4 were launched. And we can go and check and make sure that they're still running. And it looks like they are. Now, if you go and take a look at the debug log on, let's say, PIVX 2, you'll see that it says that the masternode is not yet initialized. So it's not, it's going to give you some error messages and say active masternode not initialized, which is expected because what we haven't done is the last and final step, which is to now go back to the secure PIVX masternode tool and launch 10, 11, and 12. So we should have everything configured now. They're all running, so the remote wallets are all running on Contabo. And all we should have to do here is go ahead and launch these. So, and since we stopped 9, we're going to need to launch that one too. So we're going to go ahead and just launch each of these. Now you're probably going to need to reconnect to your wallet again, so I'm going to go ahead and preemptively enter the PIN of my hardware wallet. And I'm going to reconnect here, hardware device connected, and now let's just hit this rocket ship, right? So this is the launch. Are you sure you want to start the masternode? Yes. It's going to ask you to confirm the hash on your hardware wallet, and if that looks good, you sign the message with your hardware wallet and then broadcast the start message. Start message successfully sent, and let's just do that for the other 3. Okay, so we've sent the start message. It's going to take a little while for that to kind of be registered. So if I go ahead now and say get status of all masternodes, you're going to see the 4 that I just spun up as pre-enabled. And we're going to have to give that maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And hopefully, if all goes well, fingers crossed, it will turn to enabled and everything will be green. Okay, so after waiting for a while, we've got our 4 cores. We started them up. We launched them through the SPMT tool, and we got a pre-enabled when we checked the status. And now it's been a while. Let's see if we check the status again. And voila! All 4 cores are up and running and operating as expected. Thank you for following through with this video, and let me know if it was helpful.